Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimSN podcast, the show where I ask some of my favorite questions to your favorite people. And today on the show, we have one of the newest members of the Sim. That's right, K Dog. Wait, no, I'm sorry, Peace Pierce. Oh, it's Pierce, the commish. How about that? For April Fools, we're spinning it around, and the turns have tabled. So, welcome to your own show, Pierce. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on my show.
That's great. We're happy to have me. So, wanted to start off. The one thing that you get to ask everybody else, but you don't get to just give a whole spiel about is how did you find the sim and how did you end up pulled into all of this wacky stuff?
So I don't remember how I first found the old sim that a lot of guys were on. I do know now that it was kind of on its last legs when I joined, because it used to be college and pro, and then by the time I joined, I think it had gone on hiatus and come back. But I played like front office football and Madden franchise and stuff like that, and so found that sim, and I was on the staff for the Patriots for the last like season and a half. I did half a season as a scout, and then they bumped me up to GM for the last season. We swung a trade for a star quarterback, won the division for I think the first time ever, and then that site folded. And then I hopped over to this site, which you just had your first college football season, 2021. So there was a big long off season as prepping for the next one, but then the pro sim started up as well. So I grabbed a team in each and been there ever since.
Yeah, it's amazing now that that's been more than a couple of years, hasn't it? Because it's been about 4 years of seasons in real life time. 4 years or so,
Well,
5 years.
this is our fifth NFL season. 2022, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so it's got to be at least, um, you know, at least 3 years minimum.
The sim engine is old enough to smoke in France. I think is so. I actually the other day somebody had a question and I looked back and I found one of the first ever DMs I have ever made in Discord was getting fired from the Arizona Cardinals in the old sim all the way back 9 years ago.
Wow.
I think it was Bundy, but I don't remember who. But anyway, I was, you know, it's interesting to see the course, over that kind of period of time, people's availability ebbs and flows, and you have time for the sim, and then you don't have time for the sim, and it's amazing all of the different ways. I mean, I was just thinking, when this whole thing started, I don't think the toucan could program,
Hmm.
and then by the end of it, certainly another situation where the turns have tabled.
Yeah, they will put you to work. I so I joined, and then Sim NFL like literally like a couple weeks after I joined the site. Which also I don't use Discord for. I think I downloaded Discord to join this site. I literally
Right,
don't
right.
use it for anything else. A couple weeks in, they were like, "Hey, we're opening up Sim NFL," and I was like, "Okay, I'll take my what was at then still my favorite team." Um, Thank you to Sean Watson for ridding me of that fanaticism. Um,
Yeah.
but so I was just kind of on board, and then a while in, after a while they had the pools released, and Rocket was like, "Hey, we have all these pool players, but of course a big part of a pro game is salaries and cap and all that, and we don't have any of like all these players need contracts just out of
Mhm.
thin air, it, you know." And I just volunteered because he was like, "I need someone who can help with that," and put together a whole system. Because we had young guys, prime guys, and veterans, and then we had like the different tiers, and so just did a whole deep dive on that, figuring out what positions would make what and how much more the really
What
high
you're
end
telling
players
me,
should make. So
really, is in the end, what you're telling me is the person who's responsible for the Denver Broncos being able to shove that many veterans on their team at the beginning of the sim might have been the commissioner themselves. What a
Well,
conspiracy!
you and Carolina agreed to the mega trade, which that I had no part in. They were willing to pay your roster for a year. I think they had 100 million
Yeah,
in dead cap on $150 million.
yeah.
So
I'm really surprised that's gone very well for them.
I
As of presumably the recording of this, it's still and the airing of it. In the interim, nothing bad happens. I don't know,
I
but
it's I think it's the closest we've had to like a win-win as far as trades go for a trade of that magnitude. I mean, you guys have won 4 conference championships running, and they have Dakota Link and all these crazy stars, which I don't even know. I think we may have finally reached the end of that trade tree. I think the Rashawn Lyons trade tree might still be going though, because they keep trading players and picks that they get from that. That one might still be working because they got three first
I did
rounders
I
from
did my
that.
part.
Yeah.
There's something alluring about a quarterback that just doesn't quite have it, and then you go, well, but I have different wide receivers.
I could fix it.
Maybe, and then no, it turns out actually
Yeah.
Jameis Winston is Jameis Winston wherever he goes, and you have to live with it.
Yeah. But
So I also hear you're looking to maybe do what I did last year and do a team jump in college ball.
yes, so when I joined, Ohio State was taken, and I don't think that user ended up being active, and so it eventually opened up. And I could have jumped ship then, and I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I did. Um, but at that point, I had looked at my roster at Indiana, and I had put a plan together, and I think maybe recruits were already out, so I started looking at recruits. I don't know. Um, but I ended up, staying with Indiana and building that program up, and watching someone new join Ohio State, play a little bit, go inactive and leave, and then another person joined, and then another. I think we've been through 3 or 4 at this point. And I'm like,
Yeah.
fine, just it's just sad. I mean, like I know we have, you know, discrepancies. I know we have Bowling Green as a superpower in the sim, so real life is not the ultimate litmus test. But I don't know. I feel like
I mean, there's something wrong with a sim that's supposed to represent real life, but then Ohio State, Michigan isn't really like a big thing. You got to bring that back. I did just as of right now. I did at the original Ohio State owner. They have not deleted their Discord and they haven't left the server.
no,
So,
but they haven't posted in the server since last like May, I think. So, and Ohio State has one recruit this year.
oh, nice.
They have a
I
single.
mean, no pressure,
They have a
no
four-star
pressure on
receiver.
that kid, but
Yeah,
they better be pretty good.
which is really funny because the first AI recruiting class that I inherited at Indiana, back when AI had their own pools and didn't have
Oh yeah,
the cool stuff, had one 4-star receiver and a bunch of crap, and that was Tyler Looney, who graduates this year. Um, so yeah, joining a group with one good receiver and nothing else is something I am familiar with, so I can work with that.
so you're really a star receiver merchant, is what I'm hearing. Is you're going to go to any program where you have a one, you always look for a program with a Randy Moss. I mean, it's not bad advice.
Or, or or my inability as a coach caught up to me at Indiana, and I had to jump ship before anyone realized how much better I am as a recruiter than as a coach. Uh,
Isn't that all of us? I think,
I
with maybe the exception of Fireballer, who has Boston College winning football games before his recruits are even old enough to play.
I have, and I've had some good luck, I admit, on flips, but like I have a really good sense of the recruiting system. I finished top 5 2 years in a row. That's something I have figured out, and is a closed system that I can work with. I have not figured out passing. I can't pass the ball worth a
Right.
damn. So I have a completely new plan in mind of how I'm going to build a team. But this time,
Ooh.
I'm going to see if my coaching can catch up to my recruiting after a few years.
I'll say at Idaho State, what we did is we just decided that we would not throw the ball.
There you go.
And the only game we lost was a game where we did end up throwing it 16 times and threw 5 interceptions. But when you can keep the interceptions a little bit down from almost every other throw, having a good run game is definitely
Yeah.
a little bit more dependable.
Yeah, I got a bunch of pass blocking linemen. I got 3 great receivers. I had a redshirt junior, 3-year starter quarterback, and the best offensive player I have this year is Norman Ferguson, who is my redshirt freshman running back, who
Right.
was Big Ten Freshman of the Year, and I don't. That doesn't make any sense. Like I built an offense around the pass and could not pass the ball, but thank goodness for my 2 freshman running backs, Norman Ferguson and Michael Horton, who carried me. It's I don't know. I have no explanation for it.
Well, the good thing about moving to Ohio State is when those sorts of things happen there, you get all sorts of content out of it because other people will write about Ohio State because it's a big name.
Hopefully.
Maybe, or maybe a real fake Twitter will have a beef with you.
There you
That's
go.
the one of the things. Well, okay, so I will have to say the last time we were on this podcast together, you proposed a thing, and I leaned back in the chair and then said, "I bet there's a way to do that." And then now we have SimZone. So I don't know what's going to come next, but I do have an inkling of an idea of. I'm thinking about different ways to enhance real fake tweets a little bit, and I think having some Twitter beef with real users and real schools might be a little bit of fun if we can pass information about the environment into Claude. I don't know what kind of disaster we're going to cause in some data center somewhere that slowly fills up with Dean Hammond's fan fiction, but we'll all have to suffer that when we do.
But that's true. The last time we were on together, we were talking about Sim Red Zone, and then we finally pulled that off for the end of 2026 regular season.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think to be able to follow the games, particularly in credit to Rocket, and now we have more folks helping out on the engine side. That and I know this. I'm not going to talk about Sim Baseball. I promised. I'm not going to filibuster the whole thing, but having gone through the process of putting that engine together, the stay with me on this vocabulary word, but the verisimilitude of the game depends so much on the individual actions, but also the sort of the meta behavior of play calling and player behavior, and what the sim began as and what it is now, as far as the way teams inside of the game being simulated, the way they react now to what's going on makes watching the games a lot of fun. Because teams who need to pass to get the ball down the field, pass to get the ball down the field. Teams that need to run out the clock, run out the clock. Teams that shouldn't start, Rashawn Lyons, lose games. All of the things that you would expect to see in that you see. So then when you watch play by play, there's tension and drama and all of the stuff you expect from real football,
Yeah.
with only a quarter of the brain damage.
Yeah. And there's quirks and bugs and things always to work out. We need to get kneel down logic in there so teams aren't passing up by 4 with a minute left. But yeah, it feels like watching a football game most of the time, which is the
Yeah.
goal. One of the goals.
Yeah. What are the other goals that aren't making it look like real football?
Well,
Taking over the world.
to be able to watch a game and have it look like and sound like real football, to make it react in an appropriate way to the things you change, so that gameplay or trades, you have levers to pull and you say, well, if I do this then something different will happen. Has to be predictable enough that you feel like your choices matter.
For sure.
And it should be fun.
Yeah. Before we get into the Browns, I'm curious, kind of speaking of that, around the league, the one team that I've always had one team every year, and it's always been the Cincinnati Bengals, but they definitely tore down this year. So this year it was the Lions. that I just do not believe in, and then they have an amazing year. I'm curious. I was a Bengals hater, and they kept getting to the playoffs, and they beat the Broncos, I think, a couple times in the regular season. And I was a Lions hater this year, and they're in the playoffs. Which I thought, are there any teams that surprised you this year as far as their performance?
Ooh, any teams that surprised me? Uh, I mean, the Bears is the obvious one. I mean, if you had told me the Bears would win 10 games, I'd be like, oh, that seems ambitious, but maybe I could believe that. But just the way that they've turned things around, and they've beaten 3 playoff teams in their 8-game winning streak. So yeah, watching them just go like Super Saiyan in the NFC North has been pretty wild. Oh, but no, Tennessee. Tennessee is the one because I made a big deal about they've made the playoffs every year, and then we both ranked them in like the bottom quarter of the league in terms of talent, and I'm just like, I don't see it. I don't see, like, there's no way. There's just no way. And I mean, it helps to have Richard Job kick 5 field goals a game. But no, they've found ways to win, and it's been incredible to watch. So I was out on the Titans. I was like, there's absolutely no way they can repeat, and then they completely proved me wrong.
Yeah, that one came down to the wire. And it's, of course, I mean, if you do this exercise for most teams, you could probably find this connection. It's sort of like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. There's a sort of like a 3 degrees of Broncos chicanery. But there is, a connection there with them getting into the playoffs, which is Hugh Kahn had kind of a stinker of a game where he could have, if he had a Hugh Kahn like game, Jacksonville could be in the playoffs, and we could be looking at. Am I wrong that Jacksonville has your former starting quarterback playing for them now?
James Rivera, that's right.
But couldn't quite get there.
It's close.
But I'm rooting for Matt Howard. I really hope I hope he has an off season where he can focus on the football and not the other things in his life, and we really see him blossom as a professional and an adult next season. But we'll see.
I don't know.
I thought the veteran leadership of UConn would help, but clearly,
I think. I mean, I don't have any insider information. I think the front office is going to sour on him, or has pretty quickly, given that they went really hard on obtaining 2 great wide receivers and a great tight end for him, and giving him these weapons.
And a great running back.
And a great running back.
Who actually, I mean, joking aside, actually turned out to be pretty productive for them, and not so much in the running game, but in the receiving game was pretty dependable.
Yeah, Jacksonville. I feel like they did that last year with Peterson too. Like they've figured out. I don't know what scheme they run offensively, but they use backs as receivers really, really effectively. Because
too bad they can't use receivers as receivers, but that's for that's for the next quarterback to try to solve.
Hey man, again Indiana this year. That's how I felt. We had the receivers.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's the sim is interesting in that way where I think certainly something like Madden's modern football engine, which is a whole discussion you could get into, but I think we all are sort of touched by that in a way, growing up and have expectations of what a simulation roster should look and behave like. I think in this oftentimes, and I think it's a good thing, it's about the passing attack, not just the quarterback. And so receiver that the way that those two things are complementary, not just as sort of attributes, but the archetypes and the scheme and all of those things matching up and making sense and being sort of strength on strength are things that are tough to kind of figure out and then tough to acquire.
Yeah.
Because, unless you want to spend all of your future picks, sometimes it's kind of hard to get the players you want. And then you run out of future picks, and it's even harder. So I heard that from somebody.
Somebody. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think it might have been Sage and I are kind of on the same page of yeah. It seems like you're more likely, at least in the sim, to have good wide receivers that make your quarterback look good than vice versa. Although it's as always, like you say, it's not a hard and fast rule. Um,
Yeah. But Jacksonville makes me think about that because, we have the Los Angeles Rams with a pro quarterback, two speed wide receivers, and they can just chuck it and rack up the yards.
mhm.
Jacksonville has a pro quarterback with two speed wide receivers at the top of their game, and eh,
And
eh,
and the, and the
it's
thing
okay.
and the thing about LA, if you look at Avila's attributes, he's not like at Hammond's level in terms of attributes. Like they're good, they're not fantastic, but
Right.
it's Scott Baldwin and Anthony Larry and Slamba. Like he just has
I
these.
think Bruce Dawson's starting to come on too a little bit,
Mhm.
growing into the role. If he still plays for the Rams, I have to forgive me for not being completely up to speed on
You're fine.
the
I,
lesser conference.
I think what's going to get the Rams is that offensive line. It's just it's going to start regressing or retiring, and that's going to be a steep curve. And even if Avila is still
So
there, I
this is a
think
great segue. So speaking of offensive line, let's talk the Browns. So you've got a team. When I look at it, it's an interesting squad because in the sim, I think generally you find two things. You find Miami, Carolina, Denver, Washington, kind of a thing where you're loading up and then you're holding on to assets, or you find the Arizona Cardinals where you're dumping everything and you're trying to get all the picks you can so you can play with shiny new toys like Puna Edwards or whatever it may be, who is going to be the Denver Broncos' future starting quarterback at some point in the sim. I don't know when, but we're gonna make that happen. He's got the biggest brain, and he's also a Husker, so I gotta see that through. But your team is not flipping players for assets, and you're not hoarding veterans necessarily. In fact, you traded a notable veteran mid-season,
mm-hmm.
And yet the Browns were pretty competitive all the way down. I think was it the final week you still had a chance to make the playoffs, or the final 2 weeks?
2 weeks
You
out.
were still in contention.
Yeah.
Which a lot of teams. The only team I can kind of compare as far as but they're coming from the other direction. But it reminds me a little bit of San Francisco, where they also have a young quarterback, and I think won 7 games this season.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're coming from the basement, but you've got this interesting mix of veterans that were around for the first couple of like seasons where you're giving it a good run with Mora and the QB whose name I keep forgetting,
Rivera.
and then that's right, Rivera. I get him and the Seahawks QB confused all the time, and I also can't remember his name. West, Jeremiah West, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, particularly on the offensive line, might be a good place to start because you have a collection of strong veterans, a veteran center who's you got about $8 million a year into the center. He'll be on the last year of his contract. And then you look at, well, do you have the replacement on the roster? You look at your centers, you go, I don't know, probably not. You look at your guards, and you have two guys as of right now on the final years of their contract. But then you've got this thing going on with the guards, where you have two younger players who are both position switchers, both with at least a potential. And then, I think your tackle situation, if I remember correctly, has another situation with a young guy and a veteran, both kind of locked in, and then some younger pieces. So I'm curious what your sense of, I think all of us are all inside out football guys. Like, we got to get a good offensive line. And, because we all think that, then we sort of overvalue it sometimes, but relative to each other. But I'm curious what your thought is for how that offensive line is going to progress season over season.
Yeah. I've always valued the line, but I think that the Jets really made me big believers in the value of that, with the way they put that running offense together in the last couple of years and really starting in the trenches and acquiring some really good guys. So yeah, so we have a couple of 29-year-olds. One was a pool player and one was from the first free agency in Sultana and Matsui. We got a couple of first rounders. So Mike Penny was a first rounder. He's our other tackle, and then LaFell, who we found this year, who can play either of the interiors. And then Ben Gohara has been a quiet, like low draft pick who's developed well because of that high potential. Who I think is the other dual position guy. And then Robert Smith finishing up at center is regressing, but if he comes back for his last year, he's had a great season. I think he's on the Pro Bowl ballot too. So, so I think we have our tackles figured out. We got 4 guys who can play on the interior. And I know LLB has been shifting guys around both for snaps and for just kind of comparison purposes, depending on what we want to run that week. But yeah, the hope is that the 29-year-olds can stick it out for a couple more years, and then between those and the first rounders, we'll have bare minimum 4 solid starters. And really we really retooled the offense this year. More was something that we weren't expecting to initially, but trading Lovejoy, having Anku as a second year guy. Later getting the opportunity to trade for Marvin Thomas, who was a first rounder. So now we've got first rounders from last draft and then the Jets from 2 years ago. So just getting a lot younger, trying to get guys that are all going to kind of peak at the same time as Anku develops and finishes his rookie deal. So yeah, we did see a dip in production, but it was kind of like, well, if we can get much younger at the offense and then build for the next couple of years, we think that's when our window opens. So winning 8 games, mostly on defense felt pretty good. I didn't think we were going to compete this year, and until we lost to Pittsburgh in week 17, we were in it. So we feel like between LaFell, Penny, Anku, and now these 2 young receivers, Dominguez and Thomas, we got a nice, very young core that's all going to improve together. And in a couple years, before we have to pay Anku the big bucks, we think that's probably going to be our best push.
Yeah. So you've got $60 million free, probably, as I'm looking at it. 40 to 50 of that might be available for free agency, and then in the following season, or do you have extensions that are going to hit?
About half that's going to extensions.
Gotcha.
About 30, mostly because of Colton Hayes, our very first draft pick, who's had his rookie deal and then his 5th-year option is done, so he's getting his first 5-year deal. Although we got that in at 80%. So we got a coin flip on that one, which is pretty good.
And he's probably, it's expensive now, but knock on wood, but he's projecting to probably be, other than Mariner, I think it is, the guy out in Seattle, the corner, with 3 names. Again, I can't remember exactly what the names are, but he's probably going to be the best corner in the league as far as the growth projection is looking. So even an expensive deal is a good deal.
Yeah, him, RTM, Amar Rodriguez, and Dallas are some of like the premier young corners. And then actually Matsui, one of our linemen, might be the other one. We had a couple of big deals. So about half of that's going to extensions. Another maybe I think 10 million ish is going to draft because we have a couple of firsts, thanks to the Lovejoy trade. So we have enough for a couple of big splashes. Nothing crazy, but 20 million is still plenty to work with if you're looking to sign a couple guys.
So you may go and you may do anything, of course, as you evaluate your options. But I would imagine, given what you've said, that you're probably looking to keep those draft picks and add to the stockpile of talent as you lock in these younger players. Another player would be like an Isaiah Williams. That is probably someone you'll play at the other corner to see if they stick around. And as you have a quarterback that's probably you're probably going to stick with, I'm guessing, you know, when you have these high picks, do you start to feel that pull away from best player available and start to go, well, I mean, what do I do with a fourth guard that could start?
Hmm.
Even though that prospect's really good, we really need a tight end
Yeah.
that can grow with. Do you start to feel that pressure at all? And are you feeling that pressure to say, gosh, we just need two pieces, and then we have all that we want for offense?
Yeah. Offense certainly feels like we need a tight end, and then we're pretty much good. Maybe if there's a, I don't know, even running back, we got a few young guys. And I think the sim has shown you that high 60s guys in a good environment can put out a lot of stats. I I think defensively though, there's enough positions that it's like either we need them or we're gonna need them in like a year or two.
Mhm.
Like we still have two good middle linebackers, but they're like 32 and 30 or something.
Right.
Um, so it, yeah, I'm not like a BPA purist with first round picks, but I think it's more than just like it's tight end or bust. I think tight end, any of the linebacker positions, um, even free safety. Like Davis is great and is on an extension, but he's going to be 31, I think. So, um, yeah, it's not quite BPA, but it's a little more flexible. It's not like, oh, if there's no first round tight end, I'm gonna have to trade down or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, you could. Maybe there's a team in
oh,
Denver looking to take a quarterback. I don't know. You know.
I oh man, I'm not one for draft day trades. I am already a bundle of nerves during the drafts. I still can't believe that last year we did a trade with Washington to get their second round pick. Um, Again, LLB helped a lot with that because I was already like blinders on. Make
Yeah,
sure we
yeah.
don't miss the
People
pick.
think that I probably can't relate, just given recent history. But in fact, the Dakota Link draft pick, which sort of charted the history of the Broncos of having basically two quarterbacks, and we turned it into one quarterback and a whole team and a whole
Mm.
rest of the basically filling in all of our other spots. Um, that draft pick was made while I was at an event in public for work. That was back when we had like a Google sheet, and then it was the draft board thing, and I couldn't quite get it to work on my phone, so I missed a third round draft pick because I excused myself to go to the bathroom so I could just laser focus on my phone. And then when I went into the bathroom, the reception dropped because it's in the middle of the building, and I missed out. And that is the only player I think still on the Broncos is that one safety that we drafted. I might have traded him this year, but or
That's
cut
funny.
him or something. But there was a safety that had dodged all of the other trades, and it was the guy that I didn't even intend to take. Everybody else has been processed by the machine.
Well, infamously, of course, Colton Hayes was not the guy I intended to take with my very first draft pick, and that's been a delightful mistake on my end. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
because I mean, I should have taken Rodriguez, but the guy I was thinking of was actually the one who I think Miami took, and then traded him to like the Rams or something. I don't know.
yeah.
But Hayes has been good, so no regrets there. Um, and I still think it's funny 5 years later that we took the wrong guy. Uh,
Yeah. Does his in the building? Does his locker still say the wrong name on it?
we fixed it by now. I think once we got his however many $1 million extension, I think he finally got the good
That
upgrade.
was in the agreement that will fix your nameplate.
Yeah.
I, as we're talking about defense, the other thing I noticed about the Browns is there's, there are teams that try different kinds of approaches with building out defense. I think there's maybe a little bit more creativity on the defensive side compared to the offensive side, partially because people don't let the schemes maybe constrain their imagination in the same way they let them do on offense.
Hmm.
And so I'm just a little bit curious on. I have some specific questions, but first I'm just curious overall. How do you look at building out a defense and what you're looking for in players for what you're running?
Um. So we have. I've gone really heavy, at least front seven on heavy on scheme. I know Indiana switched from two gap to multiple. I think Cleveland's still on two gap. Um, but we found run stoppers, nose tackles, pass rush, edge guys available, and pretty much stuck to that. And I forget if inside linebackers have a scheme affinity or not in two gap, or what we're using. Um, but that seems to have worked well, going really heavy on scheme bonuses to give guys the extra couple of points. Um, but yeah, no, it's I don't know that we have any specific high level strategy other than
Get good player.
I mean, get good players. Again, I have been honest about the big trades that we have taken are all ones where people have come to me. I'm not the kind of guy that's constantly spamming out, "Hey, you're looking for this guy? What do you think about this guy?" Like, people show up and like, "Hey, do you want this receiver?" And I'm like, "Sure, I guess." That's worked. Well, I guess once was trading away a receiver and once was getting a receiver, but that's worked twice this year with the Lovejoy and with the um, Thomas trades. But no, I go for singular attributes. We get cover guys, look for cover scores, which is scary with cornerbacks because you can get an inflated idea of your own players. You're like, oh, this guy's got an 85 cover score and he's only like a 65 overall. And then you realize that's just most cornerbacks. Most cornerbacks have a super high cover score because of course they do. And your guy isn't
Right.
special. Um, but
Sorry to break it to whoever's watching.
I
I'm
know,
so sorry.
I know it's rough.
Ronald Ibarra is going to lose it in the server here when this broadcasts.
Yeah, I do I I I do worry about the two gap going forward. A, because it's weak against a couple of very common offensive schemes, and B, because right now I feel like the scheme really loves defensive tackles and linebackers can kind of get lost, and two gap is like field a lot of linebackers and one defensive tackle. Um, so I feel like it's at a bit of a disadvantage there, but we've been able to make it work so far. So
Yeah. What strikes me when I look at the roster, and from what I remember game planning against the Browns, is that the one thing that struck me about the front seven is run stop.
hmm.
Those two inside linebackers, particularly the top one, is particularly if they get a scheme bonus, is basically at the maximum amount of ability to stop the run. And I'd love to know. You mentioned you're unsure of the two gap kind of moving forward, but I'm curious how you feel about the potential of losing Felipe and that 97 run stop, or seeing him age and losing that 97 run stop.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, Dell and Felipe have been great. I think there might be one year where I think both made the Pro Bowl, or at least both made the Pro Bowl ballot. This year, Felipe has. I think Dell is he might be 33 next year. I don't know. He's getting old.
Yeah,
So it's
$9
more.
million too, and 33 years old. It's
Yeah,
good.
so it'd be more about cycling Dell out than anything. Um, but yeah, we've gotten a lot of mileage out of those two for sure. Um, so I will leave that up to LLB what he wants to do with the scheme and how he want to build it. I think Indiana I enjoyed moving to multiple because you could still use a lot of those archetypes and you still got some scheme bonuses and there were a few familiar formations but you could mix it up, whether you went with two inside linebackers or two defensive tackles. The other big thing with multiple is it shifts whether or not your defensive line, whether your pressure is coming from defensive ends or your outside linebackers. You can kind of do a little of each. So I like that was a nice kind of on ramp or off ramp. It was a nice way to get off of two gap without having to wait 3 years to completely rebuild a team. I could still use
Right.
most of that defense. And in Indiana, it was because I got a second defensive tackle. It's because I won the Thomas Dick sweepstakes in a three-way coin flip, and I had him and Philip Otter, who was a really good 3-star, and I wanted a way to play both of them, so that's what I switched to. So, if there are any teams looking to get off of two gap, take a look at multiple, especially if you have good defensive tackles. But yeah, this year has worked pretty well. Our defense carried us through some close games, so I will leave that up to coach.
Yeah, and it was a season full of close games, if I remember. Because you nearly beat the Jets early in the season. I mean, really the only games where the Browns really got done hard. Well, actually, looking at it now, I can very much relate to this. So the Browns lost to only playoff teams, except the Indianapolis Colts.
Yep.
Early in the season,
Yeah.
when there's a little bit more. Oh my goodness! And even it's Greg Taphorn at QB.
And a lot of low scoring games too. I think we only broke 21 points like 4 or 5 times, mostly in division games. So yeah, it was a lot of defense and kicking games, getting us through some of those. Which again, a known thing as part of what we were doing. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but it
No,
wasn't.
the
until
only games that
it wasn't until I looked at the whole schedule I was like, wow, we did not score a ton of points this year. Like really.
we also had well, other than the Bengals, but it was a really tough draw because you had at the beginning of the season, it probably looked like a reasonably tough schedule. But then with Chicago and Detroit really coming into their own, you ended up ending the season, looking pretty healthy, and then basically facing, a steamroller of 4 games before Baltimore before a Baltimore that didn't have a scheme change penalty and had time to figure out their offense. And anytime you play a team twice, even in the sim, it's harder because they kind of know what tricks you're going to pull on them and all of that stuff. So tough deal. The one upshot of the NFL schedule that you so dutifully assemble every year, painstakingly, is it does have sort of an inbuilt equalizer in that wherever you finish, your schedule kind of adapts to that point. Am I remembering correctly that you won the division last year? Is that?
Yeah.
So then you suffer the curse of having to play the first place teams on your matches.
Yeah. If you win, I mean, it's the same for every rank, but yeah, if you win your division, you play 5 other division champions. You play the other 3 in your conference. You play another from another conference, and then your game 17 is another one from the other conference. So yeah, if you win your division, you play 5 other division winners the next year.
Yeah. So you don't have that next year, which is something to look forward to.
Though I have to check the schedule. I'll have to see which divisions were in this. We're cycled up against. So yeah, it's really only 3 ranked games, but in a season with only 17 games, like those can be huge.
Yeah, it's basically the margin because it's the difference between, let's see, so be the difference between playing like the Rams or the Seahawks, or between playing Denver and Las Vegas.
Right, and depending on which division you're up against, that can be a huge gap or a smaller one.
And depending on who's blowing it up mid-season, that
Mm-hmm.
might change that. Now you made a couple moves that would make again why I thought the season was so interesting. You made some trades that would appear to have blown up the team mid-season and moving Juan Mora, and then earlier preseason moving Lovejoy.
Mm-hmm.
And production-wise, I mean, rookie QBs always have a tough time, but almost threw for 3,000 yards with a young quarterback, and the running game, wasn't amazing without Mora, but it wasn't excruciatingly painful like we've seen from
Mm-hmm.
some other teams at times. I'm curious. You moved two veterans, but you still have some veterans on your team. Was that just a matter of demand, or was it an intentional choice to say these folks we can lose, these folks we can keep, or these folks we can't lose, because the cost of replacing them is actually quite a bit higher than we think it would be for the other ones, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just kind of curious of the thought process there.
Yeah, Lovejoy was tough because he was still pretty young and he was very cheap. But he was cheap for this year and next year. So it was literally like about the time where Anku was going to become really expensive, he was going to become really expensive. And the possibility of getting multiple firsts, which we didn't technically use the first round pick this year on a receiver. We used it on LaFell, but then the Browns' original first, we took a receiver in the first round. So the idea was, and Dominguez, I think, is actually 1 point of overall different than what Lovejoy was when I started him as a pool player. I think
Oh, sure.
Lovejoy was like a second year guy who's a 61, and then
Sure.
Dominguez is 23-year-old and like a 63. So I think it's more like, okay, we're resetting the clock to get a guy who's going to peak or be cheap in timing with the rest of our offense, plus an additional first rounder, which is actually yours. So it's going to be at the end of around next
Ooh.
year, and then
It
more.
it will be at the end of the round next year. Ooh. I like the sound of that.
I mean, it's going to be in the bottom 8. I don't
I'd
know.
like it better if it's at the end of the round, though, if possible. You know,
We'll see.
I'm not telling the commissioner to turn off the heating on the field or whatever, but whatever, or that button that they have at Buffalo Wild Wings,
Mm.
whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. And then Mora, it's just a matter of it did feel kind of heartless, and I did feel bad about it, especially considering it was only a mid round pick we got for him. I mean, but he's gone -2 and -4 since the prime age thing. He's got, I don't know. I think next year, by the end of next year, it's going to be a coin flip on retirement or worse for him. I'm elated to see how well he's done for Miami. But that was just a question of, by the time we're ready to compete at the level we want to compete at, he's not going to be there. And
Right.
maybe the guy that we take, maybe a guy that we take in the next round will be. Maybe he'll be ready to contribute in 2 years when we're trying to push for, hopefully, a playoff berth, a conference championship, something. Um, so yeah, it was mostly a matter of you know getting an investment that can pay off in 2 years when we really want it, versus a guy who was going to be retired probably by then.
So now that you have these young,
And they are
potential young
both
players,
probably going to be Pro Bowlers, or they're both nominated for the Pro Bowl, which, and who knows, could both play in the Super Bowl this year against each other. I have no idea. Um, so
I hope not, but we'll
right.
see. The you have these draft picks, and you're departing your college football team,
Mm.
so you maybe feel unshackled. As far as how you can answer this, do you anticipate taking any Indiana players or seeing any Indiana players in the NFL draft end up on teams?
Ooh. I mean, let's see who's coming out. I mean, the top guys we have coming out are a center and a wide receiver. So I don't think it's especially likely. Um, never say never, though. Um, but no, I don't have the rocket can approach of coach incredible players for 4 years and then draft them into your league and then just call it a day. I'm not
But then
quite
they know your system, man. They know your system.
oh my god, I'm not quite that lucky
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Um, but I am excited. I think Indiana has not had a big presence in the draft. I know Albuquerque went to a team, which I'm gonna be good, and former Hoosier Zach Ellington, strong safety who has been playing linebacker for the Ravens, has done very well for himself this year. Very proud of him. Um, but no, I am hopeful between Timothy Doak. I'm gonna say that right. Timothy Doak. We can have a good presence, and maybe even Tyler Looney. Although I know wide receivers looks like a deep class this year. But I'm hopeful that this year, even if they don't come to Cleveland, that Indiana will have a stronger presence on draft day than maybe we've had in years past.
Just waiting for when the pick's announced. They say Doak.
Dwack. I forget who it was that was really pissed off that I said that.
In outside of the Sim, I'm having a battle right now. That there's a county out here called spelled Saline, but it's pronounced Saline, and this is very difficult for me because it looks like saline, and so
Yeah,
I can relate to that challenge.
yeah. In Ohio, we have lots of cities named after other foreign cities that we pronounce Americanized, which drives me crazy. Uh,
Yeah, South Dakota. Shout out to our South Dakota folks. There's more than one of them. There's a great town called Belfouche, and it is not written that way, but it's Belfouche, or lead. That's spelled lead, or Pierre. That's spelled Pierre.
yeah.
Lots of French towns that way.
Mhm.
But Ohio probably has a lot of German towns and such as well. Just
Well,
being in that area.
well, we have Versailles, which you don't pronounce like the French. You pronounce the L's. We have Lima, which you don't pronounce like Lima. Um, you have Lebanon, which I think every state has a Lebanon. Um, and then
Do you have a Louisville?
Louisville. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
And
That's
so
Kentucky.
you're kind of close to Louisville, so no one probably thought to. Uh, every state I've lived in has a Louisville, and they're all very upset when you call it Louisville, as if they stole our thunder.
Oh my god.
There's a great opportunity for one of those towns to make okay baseball bats and sell them at a markdown,
Mm.
and they can be Louisville baseball, Louisville Sluggers,
The
or
the
Louisville Slammers. There you go,
there you
Louisville
go.
Slammers, and they can undercut the Louisville Sluggers.
The
I can't
worst
believe I just said my $1 million idea out loud. Someone's going to steal it.
worst county name ever is Bear County in Texas. Are you familiar with that one?
Is it? I mean, it sounds like it's dangerous just because it's got bears in it.
Well, it's
But
it's spelled Bexar.
oh, is that how you? That's San Antonio.
Yeah, it's
I've
Bear.
actually worked in Bear County, but only ever seen it in writing.
Yeah, it's just Bear. They
That's
just
fine.
ignore that letter
Yeah.
because it's I don't know. They just ignore it. It's not there.
It's
It's a
probably
silent
Spanish
X.
something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually really funny. I'm glad I never had to say the county name, but I was at one point in outside of the sim, I was helping a fellow run for Bear County Attorney, and it's a good thing I never had to say Bear.
It would tank the whole thing.
I know I would have exposed myself as a carpetbagger, but what are you gonna do? They were actually a Texas Tech alum anyway, so they were already persona non grata
Hmm.
in San Antonio.
Okay.
That whole Texas, I think Ohio has a little bit of this going on, probably a little bit with like I hear it with like high school sports and stuff, but Texas for sure has something I can't relate to really at all, coming from Nebraska and Kansas, which is like the all of the like intermingled rivalries between all of the schools and stuff
Mm-hmm.
that have been going on for a long time. The Huskers had Bo Pelini, and then we learned a little bit about Youngstown, and that it seems like everybody from Youngstown is hated by everybody else in the state. 'Cause the people from Youngstown are all jerks, but maybe it's just the Pelini family. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think they probably run into that a lot, frankly. Now that I think about it, it probably was just the Pelini family. So you're moving. The other one, the other position I saw the same dynamic in was that Clinton Gregerson as nose tackle
Mm.
is definitely is a future guy, but then on your ends you're both veteran and maybe room for improvement there a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Picking up our two position guy in the first round last year. Definitely gave us some flexibility, but then Gregerson was available in free agency. We were able to bring him on, and then Luddy was a trade. Was it with Washington? I think we did it. There was a trade
Yeah, no, yeah.
where a bunch of
I
people.
remember that name from the Washington roster that haunts me
Yeah,
when I try
we
to sleep at night.
we swapped defensive ends to get scheme fits or to get him a scheme. I forget what it was. So I'm in this weird thing where I have this huge bonus that I know it's gonna turn into dead cap very soon, maybe even this year. Um, so yeah, that's just a matter of until he hangs it up and we have to pay out his contract. But oh, Huff, just Xanon Huff. That's the name I couldn't think of. Yeah, playing at him end now that we have Gregerson at tackle, and trying to get him enough playing time to overcome that bad potential. Though I don't know what it shows at now. It showed as D minus when we drafted, but I think it's actually better than that. Um,
Yeah.
so
So in the interior of both of your lines, at some point you'll have some some young players that provide a little bit of consistency, and on the offensive side, flexibility in having
mhm.
two players who can bounce around between guard and center. So then, I've always felt like, and we'll see this at some point. I think probably when Denver's in this position, but I don't think there's anything more valuable to a team that isn't set in stone yet than offensive linemen who can switch.
Hmm.
Because the market for offensive linemen is so intense. And I'm not just saying San Francisco's driving it, but those sorts of contracts will keep coming out as teams are like, oh, we're just one guy, we're one road grader away, or
Hmm.
New York, would say we're five road graders away, and they get them all in one off season. That's a market every season. Somebody's going to be going after the top guys and being able to go, okay, I don't need a center, I don't need a guard, I just need a good value,
Yeah.
and then we can move pieces around. I think is a really understated advantage.
Well, and that's the thing too is I think you're going to see a lot of guys getting secondary positions because the shift from guard to tackle, tackle to guard. I mean it's a few percentage. It's like home field advantage. Doing that for a
Right.
year to get a guy. I mean, look at what the Saints did with Bearclaw. It was like, well, yeah, we'll take the hit 1 year to get a guy who's now going to be our cornerstone tackle for forever. And yeah, they
Or,
had to pay him a
or
bit
they could,
extra because tackles make more, but now they got him locked up for 5 years. So
right.
I think you're going to see a lot of linemen, a lot of secondary position linemen for just that reason because it's not the biggest thing to take a guy for a year and move him to another spot, and now he's got that secondary for his career.
I'm curious if that will manifest itself at other positions where I think there's it's now built into the mechanics of the sim, but there's also sort of a cultural bias of, well, linemen will be around for a while, whereas running backs now mechanically won't. So like I toyed with the idea of, well, Hugh Kahn maybe can learn to play catch
Hmm.
because he's such a good receiver as a running back. But then you go, okay, well, by the time they pick that up, they're going to be,
Hmm.
best case scenario, probably like an average wide receiver three by the time they don't get that penalty. So what are you gonna? I mean, what's the value there compared to just keeping him playing at running back?
Yeah.
But I wonder if we'll see tight ends and wide receivers swapping places a little bit amongst teams. I've always had that fantasy in Madden of
Hmm.
having a team where the wide receiver core is only just Vernon Davis, and then you just run toss all day, and then Vernon Davis just punks the corner every single time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I won't complain about the football engine in this game on this chat, but I will complain about the football engine in Madden for a second. It actually doesn't matter, and it drives me crazy because they just wander around like idiots instead of going after the safety. They'll pancake the corner, and then they don't know what to do after that, and it's really distressing.
yeah.
I blame the children for cheesing, but you know, I'm at the age now where I blame everything on the children, and So maybe that doesn't carry as much weight as I hope.
Yeah.
But
Well, I gotta say, you're doing a great job as host because you've now hit the weird geography segment and the I'm too old for
good,
this segment of the Sim NFL podcast. So,
good,
the SimSN podcast. So, congratulations on hitting those two checkpoints.
right. Now, is there a segment where a reminder goes off on my phone and I have to go take some pills?
Not yet.
Okay,
Oh, thank God.
that should
Although,
be a segment.
do you want to? Okay, you said it, so now we're gonna do it. You want to know how many active alarms I have on my phone?
Oh, that's a fun game. I have no active alarms, but my move is I have two alarm apps. I have the regular inbuilt alarm, and then I have the one that makes you do math problems
Uh huh.
to be able to wake up. And the way I work mine, I don't know if it'll show up on the thing,
Uh huh.
but I have about eight alarms, and then I set them all about 15 minutes apart from each other, and I just turn them all on. So, because I will every time I wake up, I'm like, oh, I'm going to snooze. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But past me knows better.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, you know what? I'm going to make him do so much math until he finally gives up. It's actually got one where you have to do math and then you have to do capitals of countries,
Oh God.
and you have to do the one that I set up initially was you can set it to scan a barcode. The idea being you put the barcode somewhere on the other side of the house,
Okay.
and then you would go scan it with your phone, and then it would turn the thing off.
Yeah.
And then I lost the barcode,
Oh, that's
and
not great.
so then I probably willingly lost it.
Is there an app to find your barcode when you lose it? Is there a second app?
That's what I should have put one of those Apple
Tags?
whatchamacallit. Yeah. Okay. So other thing is I can't think of a name for something, and I call it a whatchamacallit.
Yeah.
That's another older person thing.
Yeah. So I'm
So how about your alarm situation? What do you do?
so I mean it's just the default alarm app in my phone.
Sure.
I have 10 active currently, and that's only because I turned off my game plan reminder and my stream Monday Night Football reminder, which was at 12.
Ah.
But getting up, my kids' morning medicine, my kids on the bus, a couple of standing meetings at work, the afternoon bus, afternoon medicine, kids' bedtime, trash night, you know. So some are once a week, some are every day, some are every work day. But yeah, I literally, as of last week, I had 12 active, just to remind me.
So
that,
I was cheating then on that kind of competition because I'm sort of sidestepping that I absolutely do the same thing, but it's all in Google Calendar.
Mm,
So instead, it's the calendar notifications instead of an alarm.
yeah,
But
my calendar's just pings me every like midnight for random birthdays. Because every year I
oh,
forget.
nice.
It's like your sister's
I
birthday. I'm like, I know.
I was trying to uh, figure out how to put together an app. I mean, now I could probably figure it out with Claude or something. But a while ago, I was trying to figure out how to build an app myself so I could give myself push notifications,
Mm.
and I got it working, and then lost interest in the project. But now every night at 12:07, I get a push notification saying, "Hey, the push notification worked," and I can't bring myself to get rid of it because I'm too lazy to go back in and figure out how to turn it off.
There you go.
But it's a whole thing. You have to go in and register like a Google Cloud project, and then get it to save the whatever. And I can't be bothered. After Sim Baseball is finished, maybe I'll go and do that.
There you go. I don't know that I've ever felt older than the other night. My wife and I don't remember how we got talking about older movies, but she'd never seen The Abyss by James Cameron, and we wanted to watch it. But I was like, oh, but there's like the extended version, which has like the more in-depth ending. And I spent, I don't know, 30 minutes trying.
In-depth ending of The Abyss.
Yeah, there's
That's
like
pretty great. The Abyss, the
No,
in-depth ending.
I got it. God damn.
Yeah. I'm proud of you for that one.
I'm proud of you.
You didn't even do that on purpose,
It
I
was
think.
no.
And that was
that's why it's
excellent.
worse. The dad jokes just happen anymore. They're not even. I don't even think of them.
Yeah, I know.
The extended edition, I spent 30 minutes trying to pay Apple to buy this movie and could not do it. And so then we sat down and watched it for free on Disney Plus, the regular version. But like I was like it was so difficult. I did two-factor authentication like 6 times on 3 different devices. It I felt so old. I was like, why can I not just have like what happened to the
Not to
day
spend the.
when you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
push a button and play the thing you wanted?
Right. Wasn't that supposed to be the future? That's why we're letting all the apps figure out how to read our minds. Is they just daily?
Have,
You know what I bet you could
heaven
do
forbid you
is
try
you
to
could
watch
just
a
talk
single
about.
sporting event from a channel that from a league that you don't watch 8 times a week.
Right.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
What
I think
try to watch one bowl game is like an absolute disaster. And yes, I understand how old I sound. That's how old I feel. But I
I
will
think
try.
what you could probably do is watch the Abyss director's cut or extended version on TikTok. If you just talk about the Abyss cut a lot
Hmm.
right before you go back on TikTok, and then I'm sure it would. I think that's how that works.
Back on
It
tick.
would come up.
I,
We
I'm
have.
I'm better than that.
I don't want to turn it into just the complaining hour section of the podcast, but
Too late.
uh, I have at work we have a bank that prides itself on not being really available online, and there are 3 different authenticator steps that you have to go through each time you log in. And in reality, it's like a whole security thing because it's politics and like
Yeah.
everybody's still touchy about being hacked by Russians, so it's like a whole.
Mm.
The feature set is like it's really stupidly hard to get into for everybody, and that's but it takes like 2 minutes maybe to go through all of these, but those 2 minutes feel like an eternity. And then I just every time I do it, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this at all. I'm just going to go do something else. And I feel that way with the same exact like seething anger boiling up inside of me. That same exact frustration when I think, oh, whatever happened to that one movie? Oh, I bet I could go put it on my TV. And then, oh well, wait, it's a Sony movie. Okay, so they probably sold the rights individually. It's not on a streaming thing. And then you go, okay, well, what's it on Vudu? Okay, well, what's that? Oh no, it's not on Vudu anymore. It's on MGM Plus, but MGM, and then you keep bouncing on, and then it turns out that it's not on any of those anymore, and you have to buy a physical set or something, and then you go, that actually I didn't want to watch it. But that's like a whole evening of
Yeah.
getting going on that whole roller coaster.
Yeah. No, we still have an extensive DVD collection, my wife and I, because we are Luddites and do not trust streaming services to maintain our libraries. Uh,
I got a fastball for you then.
Go for it.
So you got a DVD collection. Somebody comes over to your house and says, "Hey, what's your top 5 out of your own collection? What are your like, the top 5 films either you'd recommend or like a couple of them are like we can watch this every night and it's great, or like one it's like such a great movie even if it's a little heavy. What are your favorites
Just just straight up movies, any genre. Like,
that are in your collection? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh man, um, wow.
Or do you have a particular genre? It's like your half of the collection, like it just all like straight one thing.
No, I'm. It's just, man. It's when you think of it all at once, it's hard to parse down. Here are the movies that we own that I have rewatched the most. I need to specify this in my own mind so I don't go into analysis paralysis. Let's see, Galaxy Quest, because I
Sure.
was
That
raised
makes
on Star Trek and that movie makes me laugh every time. Uh,
Yeah.
Clue, one of the best written movies ever. So tight, amazing group of comedic actors. Um, Princess Bride. I think Princess Bride is an objectively perfect movie. There's just nothing wrong with it. Nightmare Before Christmas has a special place in my heart. Watch that every year. Um, and then if we want to mix it up, let's get an action movie in there. Terminator 2, best
Oh,
action
nice.
movie.
I had a that's a more diverse selection than the I had a childhood friend whose parents had a massive DVD collection, and in particular, this was back in the day when this wasn't necessarily so commonplace. But they had a friend who had a computer capable of burning DVDs,
Mm.
and so they had their huge retail collection, and then they had this even bigger thing, which was the stuffed. It was like the fabric CD holders that were just
Mm.
stuffed to the brim like a George Costanza wallet, about to explode, and they were all just sharpies of like such and such film or whatever. And so whenever we would go over to that kid's house, then he'd have to break that out, and then you'd have to figure out what film such and such was. And when you're a kid, like 90% of picking out the movie is the cover,
Mm.
but they had no covers. It was all just the name sharpied on it. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? I don't know if it's a got a cool picture on it or not. Why would I want to watch it? But the dad in that house was all his choice was really simple. It was James Bond or John Wayne,
Mm.
and that was his portion of the collection. And then his wife had the whole other 95% of the thing, which is basically every movie that ever came out. I think they got from this guy who I don't know if they like it was actually a friend or some guy who was like selling bootleg DVDs and stuff. But I always remember that house because we never had anything like that. We had most of our friends' houses had that one like little coffee table sized
Mm.
thing, and it'd have like you'd have like the 10 VHS tapes that were still stuck there that nobody wanted to take out, and then
Mm.
a couple of DVDs, and that's all we got.
We had a couple of we had a couple of classic VHS, a lot of like ripped from TV, recorded on VHS. Some that my dad had
Right.
made, some that my grandmother had made and would send to us. And my sister and I have gotten a lot of mileage in our adult years of being like, "Hey, do you remember that? Do you remember that one? Like, was that a fever dream or is that a thing that really existed? Like I have this memory of like Gene Kelly singing and tap dancing on top of like a Jack and the Beanstalk tower with two birds." And then I found it on YouTube and I sent it to my sister. I was like, "Do you remember this?" And they go, "Oh my god, yes, it's real." I I I
I've,
I felt crazy saying it out loud until I found it. I'm like, this is a real thing that happened. Or
yeah,
there
I
was
had
a
a
there was an ice dancing performance of Sleeping Beauty that my sisters and I were obsessed with one summer and watched it like every single day, which you can now find on YouTube in its entirety. And we did watch it all together. The last time we were all together, we watched it for the first time in like 20 years. That was great.
and God forbid you go to another house and they don't have that tape, and then you reference it, and then they just give you unending shit
Yeah.
for not being in the
Oh,
loop on the cool kids stuff,
I remember
or other
watching
way around.
I remember watching a DVD of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and just realizing how much of the movie I had never seen because the copy that we had was a VHS copy ripped from TV and that either
Oh yeah.
had cut stuff that wasn't airable or that we had missed they had cut out commercials and missed like whole sections of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there's like 15 minutes of the movie that I just don't remember, even though I've seen that one VHS tape a bunch of times, because that tape did not have those scenes.
Right, right. Yeah, we had. My mom has daycare back at home, and we have a lot of tapes like that where they watch, particularly. And then, like when I went to college, then my job in college was to work in the family business. So I worked in a daycare with kids for about 5 years. But every lunch, we'd watch the first 20 minutes of every Disney movie, just over and it depended on what week it was. But then we would watch the first 20 minutes, and that's it. So I've seen the first 20 minutes of almost every kids show. And then some of them, get beat up and broken and stuff. So then you'd watch the middle 20 minutes for a
Mm.
little bit, because it wouldn't play the first part of it anymore because it worn the track down so bad. But,
We oh my gosh, I'm so old. We at one point, my family, our player, not the tape itself, but the player was starting to go, our
okay,
our VCR, to the point where
right.
if you watched a movie that was too long, the tracking would wear out at the end. Like if you ran it for more than like an hour and a half, the
Sure,
tracking would
sure.
wear out. And I remember we were watching The Wrath of Khan, and which we'd all seen before, great movie. But you get to the point where, spoiler alert, uh, where Spock has died and they're doing the funeral for it, and they're playing, and Scotty's
Yeah.
playing Amazing Grace, and the tracking wore out, and so it's like this super sad moment at the end of a long movie, and you hear this like warbling bagpipe.
Sounds like they've got a cat in a
Yeah.
rucksack and they're shooting it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Very nice. We got to
gosh.
find a way to get the football game onto VHS somehow.
I
That's the next step is to get.
I watched. I've seen so many mid to late '80s Cleveland Browns games because my dad taped. There was like a few seasons, like the AFC Championship years, where my
Yeah, yeah.
dad taped most of the games and then taped over all the losses. So I've
I didn't
seen.
realize this until it was said explicitly a while back, and this may be apocryphal because it's been a while since I heard it. But oh, gosh, a little while ago, was it the Sabal family had a documentary made about him, the NFL Films folks, and all of the archival footage that they have, particularly in the '60s and '70s and stuff. There's some sort of difference in frame rate between broadcast for television and what they recorded it on.
Hmm,
And so all of the old film looks slow. I mean, it was slow because they were slower athletes, but also because literally the frames are
hmm,
not playing as fast as they were recorded in real time. And then that's kind of what turned into eventually a style where now they film it at like 120 frames a second, but they still do kind of they slow down the play on the field and they've got the
interesting.
Sam Spence music and stuff going on it. But originally it was a technical issue that it was like 6 clicks too fast on the recording compared to the broadcast for TV
Hmm,
because they recorded it at 30 and broadcast was 24 or whatever.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that is actually true, but I thought it was true sounding enough that
Yeah.
I always thought that was interesting.
Do you know that the
Did you ever have those NFL films in your collection?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember the first time I realized that one of Sam Spence's tracks was just like Greensleeves, but played on different instruments. I was like, wait a minute.
You son of a bitch. Yeah,
Or
it's
or,
funny
or
that
is
that
just
guy.
like or it's just a sea shanty.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was probably when he made those. It was probably like I'm sure it was like a workaday thing, and he was a contract like he was probably a studio composer, and like, hey, listen, we need 40 tracks tomorrow for something with outside, and then they go, okay, great, I've got my kid's dance recital is tomorrow. I'll just steal all of those, and then he banged them out.
Yeah, no, I had 100 greatest touchdowns in the mid '90s. I had one that was Super Bowl history back when there were only 25 Super Bowls.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I had a bunch of those.
And those sorts of formative life experiences that we all share are how we ended up in the simulation football world.
Yeah. Oh,
Maybe.
there's some great games. There's a Browns Bills game they call the Duel on Dirt. Uh, Fantastic game. Back when the Brown Stadium didn't have grass, it just had like green painted dirt. And
Right, right,
Bernie Kosar was drawing up would draw up plays in the dirt to Webster Slaughter, just be like, go here.
right, right. I kind of, I understand like naturally that the sport drifts towards more organization and construction as like especially as information gets more available, but I do miss the era of football where you still had guys like Jeff George in the league. At the same time, you had Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. I think those timelines just barely touch. Or like a Brett Favre, obviously, would be another example of where they were still sort of eyeballing it a little bit as far as how they played, and then now it's turned into such a heady kind of a thing as
Yeah.
they've invested more and more resources into it.
Yeah, the product gets better, but it also gets a little more clinical in a sense.
Right.
I think that's one of the reasons I like bad weather games so much, is because
I like bad weather games, except when they put the numbers back on top of the snow
yeah,
with the fake yard
hmm
numbers. That drives me nuts. I like having no idea where they are on the field.
yeah,
That's
just just
Great point.
watching hundreds of millions of dollars of effort and talent and finely tuned precision just utterly thrown out the
And
window
then
when
they
you
just look
can't
like
run in a straight
6-year-olds
line.
going hopping up and down the field like they're playing a soccer match. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
like what are you gonna do when you can't see the ball for the snow, or when you can't put your foot in the ground for the ice, or when you can't run in a straight line for the mud?
Right.
Like that's fun.
Yeah, the AFC North and East tend to have a lot of those games happen upon them
Yeah.
late in the season.
Also, another crazy deep cut. The best field goal I ever saw, and I know bias, best field goal I ever saw was Phil Dawson, who kicked a 48-yarder in a blizzard against the Bills. And he said after the game that he aimed his kick at the pylon in the corner of the end zone.
And then the wind
And
just
it
took it.
and it and it not only banked in, it hit the stanchion on the back as it went through. He curved it in
Yeah.
and bounced it off the back from 50 yards out in a blizzard. Best kick I've ever seen.
That'd
Had
be
had no
maybe a way
business.
to utilize football IQ for our specialists in the sim is like how they adapt to weather.
Mm,
The thought.
yeah, yeah. There's
So
all
are you thinking of moving on from West Coast offense for the Browns, or have you already?
we're
It's been a while since we played.
yeah. I think we're running pistol this year, um, which um, actually might have even switched last year at one point because West Coast once we got away from field generals and moved on to a pocket guy, we switched to pistol to get that scheme bonus there. Um, so
And
I
I
presume
think
that's what we're going to
everybody
be
is.
running for the future.
Yeah, I think everybody's converging onto pistol, just because of the
It's
flexibility and
yeah, it's like got almost no malices. I think it's got like a fullback and a center malice. It's super
right.
flexible, and it works with anything. So yeah, I feel like it's the easy starting point for when you just for if you either don't have an identity or just cobbling together players, or just have a balanced QB and
Right.
haven't yet discovered the joy of wing T. Um,
Right.
so I've heard. Um, but
What do you reckon about Chop
I
and a
think
wing T? It's an interesting fit.
yeah, I don't know that he'll stay there that he should. His numbers did drop off at the end of this year. Looking at this year versus last year, his numbers don't look all that different. I think that might be because he came down to earth a bit with some really stiff competition in the end of the year. Um, but obviously that stat doesn't tell the whole story with what he's done with the Chiefs. Um, but I mean, how do you argue with 12-5? Like,
Yeah. It is a challenge though in the sim now, particularly with the other thing I wanted to touch on is your thoughts on the stamina system
hmm,
because you have a I may be misunderstanding the system wrong, so feel free to jump all over me in the comments. Uh, but you have a QB in an offense where really to maximize the quarterback of that caliber, they should also be part of the run game. But if they're part of the run game, they're going to get worn out and they're going to have to sub out at some point, or they run a higher risk. I don't know if they actually run a higher risk of injury, but
yeah, ball carrier's
um,
most common injury.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So those. It's an interesting thing because you have this. It's you have a Maserati in the parking lot, but what you really need is to hitch a an RV to the back of it. That's the rest of the offense, and it's just a mismatch of because I think the wing T theoretically is like a fine enough quarterback who's not going to screw up, and then a bunch like an offense built entirely around the traditional run, and the quarterback is a counter to that. And instead, you have Chop, who's by attribute probably one of the top three QBs in the sim, and you're not really ever in a position to throw it that much, and you're not really ever long term in a position to run it with him that much. And if you're running it with him that much, then why wing T? Because the whole point of the wing T is to get as many running backs out there and doing stuff. So it's just a funny spot. But again, I'm a division rival who maybe is bitter that they beat me the last time we played. I don't know.
I I think is Wing T in the Smash Mouth family?
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's probably the most flexible of those. So I think it gets pigeonholed as like a pure run. But I mean, they've got, what is it, Ellswick and Michael Walker and Van Slyke, who all get
yeah.
decent touches. So yeah, you're not going to spread the field out with three or four receivers, but if you've got a couple receivers and a tight end, they're
Yeah.
going to get looks.
But you'd think just by attribute, like theoretically, he'd be capable of like a Dean Hammond's kind of output, just based on attribute, and then it's just yeah, it's fine. I think both London and Chop are both in that spot of like they're not maybe the best utilization and the best offense, but they're they're good enough. I mentioned I was looking at having Hugh Kahn play wide receiver earlier. The other thing in conjunction with that I was looking at was moving to run and shoot to have a
Mm.
to let Peter London cook, which we may still do. I'm just it tickles me at some point to actually make him throw passes all the time instead of just letting him throw games
Mm.
at the end. Actually get a statistically valid sample to see if he's actually on clutch because he certainly seems like it. But that's a project for later, I suppose.
Yeah. I do like when owners or coaches are willing to fully commit to a scheme, like when someone brings out a wing T or an I option and really makes it
Yeah.
shine and draws other people
Well,
to that.
like you mentioned with your defensive choice, like the scheme matchups do matter,
Hmm.
and when you're able to zig when other people zag, it kind of throws them for a loop a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know the Browns defense causes that for some teams because a lot of defenses are not run defense heavy. They'll maybe have a player on one side or the other that's pretty good at it because they're a pretty good player. But in general, what folks have invested in and kept around on their team are pass rushers and good secondary players, that kind of a thing. But what the Browns basically do when you play them at the moment and the last couple of years is you just can't run inside. You shouldn't do it. Now, then if you play a team that whose offense has an advantage and they don't need to run inside anyway because they're good at other stuff, then that defense ends up in an awkward spot. And it's interesting to watch the sort of meta of the sim change over time to adapt to those things where you can see, right now everybody's, as we mentioned before, everybody's converging kind of on pistol. Someone's going to go off and do some other thing, and it's going to, and then not necessarily as sort of copycat as the NFL, because we don't have enough coaches on staff for every NFL team to hire 10 coaches from the same offensive staff every offseason like the real NFL. But you can kind of see where it's like a combination between finding scheme advantages and disadvantages, but capitalizing on undervalued markets and free agency and trades, and then maximizing the players that you have. That it is sort of a fluid environment um, that is engaging, and that there maybe there's something to that as far as what the Chiefs are doing, and that nobody else is really doing a lot of smash mouth
Hmm.
at the pro level. I think
Yeah.
among the contending teams, we're all kind of more on the air it outside.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was one year the NFL had like one like I option team. It was always fun to watch. I think it was the Giants. It was always fun to watch the Giants results come in as the one
Yeah,
team doing this very specific
it's
thing.
doing just something completely different than everybody else.
And that is one of the fun things of whatever about switching programs. I mean, not that you could do that with an established program if you wanted to. You could start recruiting toward a new scheme, but the idea of being like, I'm inheriting this roster that doesn't have a lot of doesn't really have
Oh
anything
yeah.
built in. It's like, what scheme do I want to run, defensively, offensively? What's under tuned? What is weak to things that nobody plays and is strong against really common threads, and what can I build toward having pretty
Uh,
much any possibility in front of me.
and the Huskers were kind of building towards something like that completely by accident before I left. And I think it might have been interesting to see if the starting quarterback didn't just explode in flames for the rest of the
Yeah.
season. A couple games in, but we had what I had recruited and intended to recruit was a run heavy offensive line.
Hmm.
And then I missed keeping people from the transfer portal 1 year. So then the following year, I had to start a freshman that I had just recruited. But the line was all really geared towards run blocking. But then I also had all of those wide receivers that were really highly ranked. In fact, one of them, like the best one who's playing for the Lions right now, wasn't even any of the highly ranked guys who came in. He was a 3-star pool player
Hmm.
or initial roster guy who just boomed at some point. Bonifacio, he might, I think he's Lions. He might be Bengals, but he was a high pick. And then we had Puna Edwards, and then the guy they have now, who's a pro. They have more pro QBs now than they did before. But it was kind of gearing up towards this thing of like, as long as they don't sack us too bad, we can throw enough to then that when we do run, you get tons of yards. And so this year, Nebraska, even as kind of an AI team for most of the season, they would have these games where uh, these freshman running backs, like you had freshman running backs, for inexplicably would run for like 10 yards of carry out of nowhere and carry them, even though they had a bunch of bums that I recruited playing quarterback who couldn't. All of those worthless backup QBs I hate and will never take at Idaho State. So that's another example of a team where it was sort of in a mid transition, but it opened up new opportunities. Even though,
Hmm.
like I said, it's hard, particularly in college, it's hard to pivot from one thing to the other in one off season.
Yeah.
Have you had anybody do that in pro where they fully pivoted from one scheme to the other in one off season? I think the Chiefs are maybe one example.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Just because it's so much easier to acquire between free agency and trade, it's easier to acquire players that match your scheme. Um,
Yeah,
less common now that we're having less movement in terms of ownership and
right.
coaches. Um, but yeah, we definitely saw big swings year to year early in the sim.
Yeah.
I know Indiana. I was actually toying with moving to vertical offense. I was recruiting speed and route runners, receivers, and then multiple good tight ends. And I wanted to try doing a lot of a lot of passing, and a lot of two tight end running sets. Um, so that's what I've been kind of recruiting for. Um, may not come to fruition now because I don't think the AI is going to pick vertical for that roster, even with a young pocket QB. But that's one
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
I was toying with as I was building my last couple of recruiting classes. But again, then it
I'm a
turns
little.
out I can't coach the pass, so that didn't work.
Yeah, it. I thought when you look at particularly the Browns, Anku threw 5 of his interceptions on play action passes,
Hmm.
and no touchdowns on long passes and 5 interceptions on
Yeah.
all of his fuck it. Well, you know what the problem was? He probably said, fuck it, Lovejoy down there somewhere, and then it turns out Lovejoy wasn't down there somewhere because you traded him away, and he never learned. What do you on your I asked this I think last time it came on. What do you see as on your wish list? I mean, I think there are some obvious things this off season that will update. But what do you see on your wish list for the sim in the next couple of years?
Oh man, I think mechanically I wanna figure out this pass rushing thing because um, it's defensive tackles are so crazy overtuned, like 50 tackles for loss and 20 sacks. Like
Right.
we have like 12 Aaron Donalds in the sim. And then you have your best edge rushers who are getting like 8, maybe 10 sacks.
Right, right.
So I think there's something in there either about I don't know. I saw that looking through the making the Pro Bowl list for linemen. You have centers and tackles who have huge pancakes and very few sacks allowed, and then even the best guards are like 1-to-1 at best. You have guards with like 10 or 12 sacks allowed. So
Do you suppose that's folks not running a lot of power run? I wonder. Good guess.
yeah, I don't know, but
There's fewer run blocking opportunities for guards as the lead blocker.
yeah, I'm not sure, but there's something in that interaction where guards are taking the brunt, especially taking the brunt of the pass rush, and
Yeah.
tackles are getting the bulk of
And
the.
did you check? It's not like a Spiders George situation where there's just one guard who's giving up like 50 sacks and then throwing the knife.
I don't know, but yeah, like it was hard to find guards for Pro Bowl, or I felt bad like there would be like there's like four centers who have like a 10-to-1 pancake to sack ratio, and then there's like the best guards are like 1-to-1. And it's like, well, I don't
Right.
want to. I was like, do I mix all the interior linemen together? Well, no, that's probably an engine thing more than a talent thing. So,
Yeah.
there's something. I think there's something in the way that the sim works through pass rush that is giving defensive tackles either a big leg up when their number is called, or just a lot more opportunities to rush the
Yeah.
passer.
Not to talk shop live, but I think there's something with the way it evaluates performance that um, puts the wrong. It overwrites uh, values on top of existing storage.
Hmm.
Because we were looking through it, T. Sweezy was explaining it to me that there was an issue where like the evaluation was basically done based off of a defensive end and not necessarily off of the entire defensive line.
Hmm.
And so it was causing situations where like if you had a good defensive end and okay defensive tackles, what would happen is the good defensive end, if it was the one that was evaluated, the result of the overall interaction would be success. And then because you had decent defensive tackles, then when it was evaluating, like, okay, the offensive line failed, where are the defenders in this failure? The good defensive tackles were closer to the running back or closer to
Hmm.
the quarterback in evaluating the tackle for loss probability, or they were able to the offensive player wasn't able to break the tackle because the defensive tackles were good, and so then you'd get more of the stats
Yeah.
accruing on the tackles than you would expect.
Yeah.
But that was it's the whole thing is so crazy because it's like all of the game engines, baseball definitely included, is like idea on top of idea, and then you spackle a problem, and
Hmm.
then you move on to the next thing, and
Yeah.
it's hard to figure out. We had in the tuning for the baseball sim, there's a fellow named Carlos El Cid on the Royals who has not great power. Uh, the way the baseball rosters work is you can't see the specific attribute value, but I think it's not spoiling anything to say he's not a power hitter. And he was leading the league in home runs every single time.
Hmm.
And I couldn't figure out what I was tuning the power index thing up and down, and the way that engine works is it isn't prescriptive. So the interaction doesn't say, okay, pitcher batter go against each other. Oh, it's a triple. It's, oh, okay, they did or did not swing. Did they make contact? What quality of contact? Okay, that quality of contact. What's their power? Okay, that's their power. That's where the ball ended up. How fast did the defenders they get there? This is how far the guy got around. And it turns out I had changed some base running tuning to make steals work a little bit more realistically. And when I changed that, the hitting timings borrowed that same function.
Hmm.
And so then it turned out that Carlos El Cid never had a single ball leave the ballpark. But almost every time he hit the
He
ball,
was.
as long as it got into the outfield, he was hitting an inside the park home run because the defender couldn't throw the ball fast enough to home plate. And you change one thing and then the other thing breaks, and
Yeah.
it's just a continual process of refining. And and working on it. But this is if there's any year that's been further evidence that there's more variety. I mean, I think looking at a team like San Francisco or even the Browns or Kansas City, New York. I don't mean to solely mention AFC teams, but they're the ones that I'm familiar with from playing. You see teams that rely on a premise of sort of fundamental football principles that track, which is like if you control possession, if you limit the
Mm.
other offense's opportunities, you're going to have higher variance games, but oftentimes in your favor
Mm-hmm.
also.
Yeah.
And then you have a bunch of passing teams where I know in the beginning of the sim, like some of the passing teams were just you had your Rams that were just chunking yards together over and over. But that's also you can end up in problems, particularly with stamina in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where if you reduce your offensive plays, your defense gets tired, or the other offense just is able to run so many more plays, your defense gets tired. And
Mm-hmm.
this year, in the evolution of the sim as it adapts, it gets closer and closer to sort of real life strategies. For instance, the Broncos, we had a stretch of about 5 or 6 weeks. We were down at halftime or tied at halftime,
Mm-hmm.
and then blew the doors off it. Peter London, Peter London, was leading an offense that was outscoring teams in the second half and making comeback plays and stuff. I chalk it up to running the ball so much we tired out the other defense and we were
Mm.
playing more backup defenders. And all of those things are a testament to the work everybody does on the engine to think about these sorts of things and go, okay, what's the next thing that we need to look at
Yeah.
to make just a little bit better or to tune. So outside of the engine, what in
Well,
the
actually,
community
I
is there
have I thought
anything?
of I did before you move on. I did think of two things.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, one is a lever to set your pace. I feel like what we have now is a pretty fast pace in terms of how many plays
Right.
you run through. Being able to change that, I feel like would be fun, especially for like you say, heavy rushing teams that play heavy passing teams or play good offensive teams and say, I want a slow pace, I want to run more clock, I want to take the time of possession to keep the other team off the field. I think being
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to have more of that, and then any kind of lever related to aggressiveness for players that are like, yeah, I want to go for it on fourth and goal. I want to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Being able to have a way to ratchet that up or down, because again, I feel like especially if you're like an underdog, you want to play a specific way versus a favorite versus a week one game versus a week 18 game, for example. Um, having more things that people can do to adjust their game plan to the scenario and the opponent they're facing, I think would be cool.
So then thinking, outside of I think both of those are great ideas. Uh, in particular, being able to adjust pace, both for in the basketball engine, uh, you know, and the football engine would be a lot of fun. We've seen what that's done in the basketball sim with that relationship between pace and stamina. Even if what it was, Citadel had a broken pace mechanic. I don't know how read in you are to that, but they were playing like 22 to 27 games, and it was just like, whoa,
Hmm.
man, that defense is stifling, but their offense is terrible. And it turns out they had like a null value for their pace in the second half. They're basically playing a half compared to a full game,
Weird.
so they were actually just okay at defense. But the basketball engine, was only playing basically returning. The pace was so slow; it was returning about a half a game's worth of plays
Hmm.
because there was no value for their set pace.
Interesting.
But outside of that, we've seen the relationship between like, boy, my roster's not very deep. I got to play a slow pace because I don't want to go deep in this bench because it's tragic. And then teams are able to still perform well at the slow pace, but then there are teams that are maybe deeper, or they can sustain the kind of offensive attack they want, and they can while cycling through players, and they're able to play a faster pace, which reduces the variance and can depending on who they're playing, that can cause issues with lineups and things where they
Mm.
you'll see them kind of catch up late in games and stuff where they finally catch their bad matchup. So that'd be really fun to see in the football sim. You know, slow running, slow passing, fast passing. You know, everything in between
Hmm.
creates different dynamics. As long as you know it's kind of tied into the stamina thing, I think it would be great fun. Outside of the engine, is there anything that strikes you that you'd like to see just in the community, as far as changes in the next year or two?
Um, I still think the community is one of our strong points. I, I like bringing the owner votes in. I like giving the owner a specific role. Um, and I know that is tough on the development side because you have to balance expectations. But like having owners involved in like the UDFA decision, I think has been really good. Um, so as far as that goes, um, I get yeah. Looking, I mean, uh, yeah, just more media. Anyone who wants to make media, even if it's just like a press conference, even if you just write two lines and invite people to like ask you questions about the game, and then you respond as they ask you. I think I want to get press conferences going again as a way to ease people into
So
like media creation. Like you don't have to
yeah, yeah.
research, you don't have to write 1,000 words. Literally, just kick
So
off a topic and let people come to you. Yeah.
so here's my crazy idea.
Okay.
On the baseball interface, we have the box score come up.
Mm.
What if we had, and we have users through the interface? What if we had like a comments, basically, like a comment section or a media section under each game?
Mm.
This is my crazy idea. Which, obviously, immediately, anytime you create a comment section anywhere on the internet, we know exactly where it's going to end up in a couple of weeks. Is, no matter how quiet you think your corner of the internet is, somebody will find a way to post
Mm.
political bullshit in the comments, even if it's Matt Howard for president 2028, which I assume we're going to get in a couple of years, because especially if Jacksonville cuts him, that just seems like the natural
Mm.
path. Because in 2027 he'll start a podcast, and then in
Oh, nice.
2028, he'll win a surprise Iowa caucus. I'm sure. It just seems kind of like that tracks. Uh, but there's a friction right now in the sim, which is you need sort of three things in order to participate fully.
Mm.
You need the Discord, you need the interface, and then you need the site. And not that I don't love the site, but if there was one that you would sacrifice
Mm.
in the name of keeping everything in one box, if we could have some of that, um, if we could find a middle ground between like the instantaneous but completely unindexable and unparsable live chat of Discord, if we could find a middle ground between that and this sort of stale information that's on the website, where a lot of folks maybe check it once a week, maybe, even
Mm.
though they're super active on Discord and they put their game plans in, they're not visiting the site as much anymore. I think having the interface be able to host some of that stuff might be an interesting way to capture that reaction to games, a little
Mm.
bit of shit talking, that kind of a thing, or even before. I know K Green dared me to. He made a joke about putting Kalshi into Sim MLB, but that's the same mechanic, right? Of like being able to take the game state and go, okay, and we save more information about the game state or relating to it, and then take in the game state and then give out new information. I think comments, or like or even something of just like on the schedule page, what if people can kind of vote for like what's the game of the week or the series of the week or something
Mm.
like that,
Mm.
and put an upvote or downvote or something, and then the system keeps track of that. Those are the things I'm kind of thinking about as ways to change engagement in a way to make content creation easier. Of like, you can make, maybe we can do like create a press conference section of the baseball page, or like if you want to, you can click a button, it'll open up the thing and people can ask you questions and stuff. Or And of course we have the team inboxes too for all of the sports too. So it could say like it could give you an alert that like such and such coach has opened a press conference for such and such game, and then it would take you to be able to
Yeah.
leave a comment. But that's where my head's at on that is like, how do we make it faster and easier for folks to do stuff? Because I love the site, but you got to go on Google search and you got to find a picture of some coach, but not the current coach, because that seems too on the nose. And then you got to save it, and then you got to put it on the forum, and you got to write a whole thing. So you know, but like the a lot of the community in jokes and themes and relationships all spring from the sort of game reaction or draft reaction or event discussion. And we're sort of bifurcated now between the game results and then Discord. And Discord's great. It's just built for like the opposite of that, which is instantaneous interaction and then forget it and move on.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons what when Discord turns into discussions of features people want to see or things they want to tweak. And I remind people we have threads for that, which is not to say stop discussing them here, but if you want your thought to last, take some time, think it out, write it down in a place that's not going to be pushed aside by the next text or the next hour.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's baseball season. We all know what's going to happen in general is every time the Marlins win, we're getting 5 tweets. And I mean, Nebraska starts winning some baseball games. They're going to be, a lot of gifts involving corn and bodily anatomy in there as well. And you don't. It's unfair to ask people to parse through all of that every time they want to remember what suggestion they had for the game engine. Well, it's been great chatting, but you DM'd me.
Oh yeah, no, you're good.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. We are both of the same mind. It's been great chatting. We don't have to go home, but we can't stay here. So thanks for being your own guest on this April Fool's Day episode of the podcast, and happy to jump on and be a temporary host for the show and chat. And let's see. So April Fool's would be
Wednesday, I think.
Wednesday. So we'll know when this airs. We'll know how the playoff games went. But in the interim, as we're recording this, do you have any predictions or prognostications on what we're about to see? Any hot takes on our wild card weekend?
Ooh, I not not to tip my hand too much, but I could not in good conscience make a guess. Because that would not be fair, knowing what I know.
Okay.
I'm excited for this weekend.
Yeah, sure. So my hot take is that the Chargers successfully target Miami's third linebacker and they upset the Dolphins. That's my hot take. I was going to ask for a hot take to leave it on, but that's if you are incapable of making a hot take ethically, then I'll throw that out there. I think the Chargers are from the division from hell, and they're maybe a little tougher than we think.
So here's a question: is there sitting in the catbird seat as you are? Is there any team that you do not want to see? Any wild card team that you don't want to see come your way as the lowest seed next week?
I can tell you a team I don't understand, and that always scares me. But I wouldn't face them until the Super Bowl. Is the Lions? I don't understand. That team makes no sense to me. Which means they figured something out that I don't get. I don't know how they ended up doing as well as they did. So that really worries me. Washington really worries me also because just always and terminally and chronically forever. But other than that, out of all of the teams, I think the obvious thing is the Chiefs. but that's two. That would be 2 weeks. I think it's the Chargers and or excuse me. It would be the Chargers or the Titans that I would play. I think.
What you NFL doesn't use a true bracket; it's lowest remaining seed. So depending on who wins, you
Or
could
Pittsburgh. Yeah, or it could be Pittsburgh.
it could be 4, 5, 6, or 7.
Yeah, yeah. Or no, Pittsburgh's a division winner, so they're four. Right. So
So if 2, 3, and 4 all win, the lowest remaining is 4, so you'd play him.
yeah, I don't want to play Pittsburgh. That's another team where I don't
Okay.
know how Kipnis is getting all those yards, but I don't want him to get him on us. And we avoided him, I think, for the most part. I think we played maybe in the preseason, but they just obliterated us on the ground. Any team that can run, I don't like, and almost all of the teams in the AFC playoffs, even Miami with Juan Mora now, basically all of the teams that had winning records are good at running the football. So I kind of hate all of them, but especially Pittsburgh. So I'm sure you can relate as an AFC North owner. I don't really care for them.
Yeah.
And so that's the hot take. Buy stock in the Chargers and Dean and hate on Pittsburgh, and we'll call it there.
Awesome.
See y'all next time.
Bye, guys.